Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Seitz, Chief Marketing Officer at C2P. Recently, I had a conversation with Mila Bennett and Owen Broadhead from our marketing team after they came back from Inbound 2025, HubSpot's marketing and sales conference. There was so much to talk about that we've split that conversation into two parts. You're currently listening or watching to part 2 of our conversation. We have the links to part 1 in the description of today's episode. For this conversation, Mila and Owen dive deeper into the evolving world of marketing strategy for advisors, covering everything from structuring content for AI-driven discovery to the latest email best practices that favor brevity, clarity, and forward-pulling language. You'll hear about why reputation and reviews matter more than ever in AI search and how advisors can stand out by focusing on differentiation, trust, and authentic connection rather than blending in with the crowd. We'll wrap up with their biggest takeaways from Inbound, reminding us that firms who succeed will be the ones that embrace new technology while staying grounded in humanity, trust, and expertise. We hope you enjoy. So, Owen, I guess we'll come back to this one. We touched on it a little bit earlier. So, as the large language models like ChatGPT are reshaping discovery right now, how should advisors be structuring the actual content so that it shows up in these AI-driven platforms?
That's a great question. Again, so SEO is not gone anywhere. It's just evolved to answers. So like I said a little bit earlier, answer the questions that your audience is asking and answer them clearly, but not just that. It's how you put it in the structure on your webpage so that the back end can inform the artificial intelligence search agents, what they're talking about. So there's a framework that is not necessarily like an industry best practice, because one of the other things that Inbound was saying, that best practices are shifting so fast that they're kind of like gone. So you have to kind of say the current best practice or the evolving best practice. Well, right now the evolving best practice is an acronym called VECTOR. So before I get into what that stands for, it essentially just means to write with clarity and depth, answer real questions plainly, organize your content into headings, frequently asked questions, cluster the topics, show authority, really important, cite your sources, use data, build credibility, keep it human, storytelling, relatable examples, mention local cities, maybe some involvement. And then we're going to get into the acronym. So V for vector is to verify the intent. So like I was saying earlier, intent is everything with AI. So make sure that the name of the article, whatever you're seeking out to write about, is going to provide an answer to someone who's looking for it. So very, very clearly make sure that the content that you're producing is coming to, from concept to conception, and you're really answering the question there. And secondly, next in the article or blog posts or webpage, what have you, is you're going to want to expand the relevance and know that have the reader know that they're in the right place. Say, oh, this is right in my alley. This are all my questions. And then you are going to start getting into the nitty gritty in terms of the FAQ clustering of how you're going to, target the certain questions and then how you're going to answer them. And a big part is actually on the back end, how you're informing the schema, which is like, the structure of your web page. You want to make sure that you are optimizing those for AI search in other ways, like maybe it's speakable search. You can now click on web pages and they'll speak it for you. And pretty soon that's going to be happening. Your phone's going to be speaking the web pages and your results into you. So you want to make sure that your content can be spoken. And then you want to optimize it with the structure and the schema. And you want to do that regularly, I would say quarterly. And this is something that you could go and do in your old content from years back. Go back and optimize all that stuff using this strategy, and it'll get you a little bit closer to finding your audience.
Oh, that's great. It's a lot there. And is it true? I've heard too. I actually love what you said too about the best practices. Like, it's the current best practice. Things are evolving so quickly that best practices are evolving so quickly. But that especially on AI related search, so not like the AI built into Google, but on like ChatGPT searches, Copilot, Gemini, things like that. That it's making it even more important from the authority standpoint for reviews. So public reviews on like Google reviews, Facebook reviews, things like that are having more of an influence on where you're showing up in AI search. Is that true?
That is true. All that stuff is extremely important. It's going to check your reputation. It's going to check your reviews. It's going to check your presence. It'll, your credibility, your sources. So yeah, all that stuff is very important. You got to cite your work.
No, it's great takeaway. Thank you very much. So Mila, I guess kind of related to that too is I'll mention like shorter structure in terms of the web copy, but copywriting in general now is favoring the brevity, the short lines and forward pulling language instead of the longer paragraphs. What best practices stand out to you that advisors can be applying?
Yes. So it's funny about the best practices again, because yeah, it's true. Once some
We'll say current best practices. How about
current best practices,
that?
but yeah, like Owen said, they are evolving. So for example, the best practices that, I came into when, I started this position feel to me outdated now, even though I still see them used and, still use them sometimes, but now it's like, okay, well, here's why maybe we need to move forward from that. Brevity. Well, yep, one main reason is that attention span. It's the time that people have. It's the sheer volume of content, of marketing that is coming at you from everywhere. So it's, funny because I'm sitting here talking about messaging and Owen's talking about how to be everywhere, right? And then here is your possible client out there just overwhelmed with the sheer amount of things, like all the time things, right? So some best practices, some current best practices, some best practices that I'm using to be the best at this right now. Okay, what is working for email copy? Well, first of all, apparently no one is reading the emails. They're not. 3 lines or less gets you the best results. The combo for 25% higher open rates, 3 words or less in your subject line and no preview line. That's hard, right? It's hard for me quite a lot because those 3 words are gold. Are you going to encompass everything with 3 words? Well, that depends. But 25% higher, that's a big number. So that white space is really working. And then, interestingly, the way we phrase certain things results in higher or lower open rates. So, for example, way to, like the way to help lower taxes, that is more likely to be open than strategies or methods or here's how. It's way to insider way to fastest way to something like that. Those increase open rates currently by about 17 to 19%. So that's just a really easy tweak. So I was really quickly going to add on Owen's last point about the SEO AEO. This is so important for all content across the board, especially for homepages, because a lot of firms have similar names, right? I can think of clients of mine that I have tried to Google them and come up with 5 different firms of that name, and our clients are sometimes coming up first, which is awesome, but sometimes not. And just getting that homepage optimized is key, right? Because you don't want to be lost. So yes, and I guess encapsulating all of that, do less, and do it differently, right? If you're on different platforms, vary your content, keep it bite-sized, but impactful. So just imagine like not like one Skittle, but rather like an amuse bouche.
No, I love that. And for those interested, can go check out the podcast we did earlier in the year on Jolt because it was a similar theme there of the importance of just being different. They said they're like being different is better than being better because everyone's always competing. If you're saying the same thing, who's always the best at it? But being different is what's going to help you stand out. To your point, whether it's web copy, email copy, social copy, be different, be your brand.
That's true. And just adding one more thing on that, it is so important for our clients because really, I mean, we do a lot of the same things, and especially anyone who is part of C2P, right? It's holistic wealth management. It is literally the same thing, but how are we going to differentiate? So that is one thing that we think about as in the agency managing clients, but thinking deeply about what your ideal client looks like, beyond how much, they have, how many assets under management, beyond demographic, right? How specific can you get about the niche? Like how deep can you sort of cast that net? Because right, it's not about attracting everyone, right? Like the millionaire down the street is not the same one as the one across town. They're very different people, and it's really about so much more than that. Because when you're the consumer, you see, right, all the possibilities in front of you. Like, you've got X amount of advisors out there. Who are you going to go with? Most of the time, it's going to be someone that you connect with on some level. You feel that you trust them, right? That's what's going to pull you in to even do that first meeting. When you see their, marketing materials, is there a spark? Is something attractive, right? Because of course you're amazing at what you do. Of course you have the credentials. Of course you're good at it. But that's not what's going to get you that first bite, right? You just have to connect with your people. So I feel like the strongest thing, the most important thing you can do is really think hard about who that person is. Like, who do you want to connect with and bring to you? And then everything will fall into place so much more easily.
Exactly. Bring that forward, and that establishes your know, like, trust that we talk about is so important in this industry. So we're pulling all that content together, and Owen, diversifying that content is another big theme. So you got YouTube and LinkedIn and podcasts, videos. Why is it no longer enough to just rely on one platform? And how should advisors be thinking about spreading their message across multiple channels and figuring out which one's the right ones for them?
Yeah, like Mila said, the millionaire down the street is different from the millionaire down the road. It's you don't really know exactly where they are spending their time, but you may have done social media tactics that worked one time in the past, and you kept doing it on that platform because it was your bread and butter. Well, good. That's great that you know that works. But where is your audience? They could be out on Twitter. They could be on LinkedIn. They could be on Reddit. How are you going to get that same message out there and tailor it to them? Well, since you already know it works, it shouldn't take too much to throw what you already know stuck at the wall and throw it at another wall. Because frankly, it's just not enough to hang your hat up on one platform right now, because people are hanging out in different areas, consuming the content that they want and in the formats that they want it. So it's all very in alignment with the loop, and to kind of meet them where they are. And you don't have to stress yourself out about it, because you've already done great work. Let me tell you, everybody, good, doing great out there. Just keep doing what you know works and make it better, and that's what we're all doing out here, right?
That's right. No, I like it, and I think to what you hit on, it's important. Don't feel like you've already created it. Now you're just figuring out how to distribute. Don't feel like you have to do everything at once. Kind of perfect what the places that you're at, the channels that you're on now, and then start to explore some of the new ones. But that's why knowing your numbers, which we talk a lot about, helps, because you know how successful you're doing on each of those channels.
That's true. And I'm going to add one thing about the videos. So we talked about short form working really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. And YouTube, obviously started out as more longer form back in the day. But one way to build your presence and your channel is actually to get started with the short videos, because you can repurpose those, on LinkedIn, right, on Facebook, but on YouTube, they will get you subscribers, they'll get you views. And then when you're ready to do that longer form content, you already have people there who are watching, right? And what are the stats about videos right now?
Well, if you share a piece of very valuable information that you can only really get from being an expert, that's going to trigger something in the user that sees that video, saying this is legitimate. And so a thought leadership ad, a video of 30 seconds where you share a piece of really great information, but don't exactly tell them how to get it. That's kind of the key, because it's not fake, it's not spammy. Somebody's already coming out and telling you something that's true, but we're just we're trying to help you. So yeah, right now the top performing ad on LinkedIn is of a guy in a baseball cap who is sharing a piece of information and then directing him into a lead magnet funnel.
Yeah. I feel like, yeah, the takeaway there is, people now, because we are so inundated in the digital age, everyone knows when they're being marketed to and like sold to, and no one likes that. The minute that it feels like a sales pitch, everything turns off. But as Owen said, if it's thought leadership, if you're just filming yourself talking about um, RMDs, but in a way that looks like you have thought about it and digested it for yourself, and it's not something you maybe read somewhere, that is interesting. That would pull me in. For example, I'd be like, "What's an RMD?" Interesting.
If you get them to strike a nerve and,
Yeah.
and they don't convert, then you have them to remarket to. So striking the nerve is one of the most powerful things, like hitting on those pain points, because then you have them to come back to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if people aren't ready, to do the right fit call or to really do anything, I mean, they have you earmarked at that point. They're like, "Oh, this guy knows what he's doing. I like what he said here." And then when that day comes around, when they need to level up their financial landscape, they think of you first, right? So it's about establishing the presence, establishing trust that way. So lead with you, right? And then all the amazing things that you can do follow directly from that.
I like that. And then Mila, kind of like what you said, people want to be educated and helped. They don't want to be sold. So that's fantastic advice there. So we've crammed a lot into here so far. A lot of your notes that you sent over. But let's wrap up with one more from each of you. Mila, we can come back to you first. What stood out the most to you regarding the overall themes that we've shared this year? We've covered a handful so far, but what stood out to you the most that you want to close with today?
Okay. Wow, there's so much. I think what stood out to me the most, well, AI was a huge, I mean, it was AI underscored everything that we talked about. And I think what was a common thread across every panel and every speaker, everything was, how to be really good at working with AI, because it's not AI that's going to come take your jobs. It's people that know AI, that are going to come for your jobs. Well, not really, but be really good at it because it's not going anywhere. And it's a powerful tool if you know how to use it. And then also B, make it look like you're not using AI, right? So it's about the balance between using that powerful information aggregate and, how to also amplify the human element and maybe recover it. Maybe it has been lost a little bit, but it needs that human element. It is nothing without it, right? Because all it is a collection of everything everyone knows all together, which is why when it learns, it's just collecting more. And then basically, um, leading with trust, taste, and expertise is what the most important takeaway was for me as far as branding and messaging, because a brand is not attractive anymore, right, to us. Like, we connect with individuals really, so bringing that forward and then using all the technology and the strategy behind that to support it instead of leading with that first.
Got it. How about you, Owen?
Kind of like Mila was saying, I mean, given that it was a very heavy AI conference, I was pretty shocked at like the level of humanity that occurred, because for years it's been kind of like the scary monster of AI, coming for your job, really. But what they were sharing really is that when companies have done that, like for instance, Zillow were allowed to go completely autonomous AI, and it was a catastrophe. They were allowing price changes, and that was like one big corporate experiment that said you need a human in the loop, and like, none of this happens without us. So in a way, it was reassuring, but it was also in a time where it's really easy to be disconnected. It was nice to get connected and learn new things. It's fun to learn new things. It's fun to try it. It's fun to have imposter syndrome, heck. Like get scared and not know how to do something for a few weeks until you put it off until late night and you try something and wake up the next day. It works. Just be curious and be human and give it a try.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you both very much, Mila and Owen, for bringing all of this thought leadership back to us at C2P, our C2P community, and sharing with our audience today. For those of you watching or listening, to connect with Mila or Owen or any of our talented marketing agency team, please check out the details in our podcast notes below. Make sure that you are subscribing on whatever platform you are watching for listening today. And thank you all again for tuning in to this Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Never miss an episode by subscribing now to discover new resources and strategies. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help scale and secure your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.